hate talking off the top of my head because I typically get it wrong sometimes, and I don't want to do that. So, what I wanted is my notes. So, in this scenario going downwind, so we have a standard downwind. It doesn't matter whether we're in the port box or whether we're in the digital end. We are at the Mark III, right? So at Mark III, we're turned left. There it says next mark. So, position 1, blue's on starboard, yellow's on port, right? Yellow's clear ahead at the zone. Okay, so you understand why they're clear ahead there. So yellow's clear ahead at the zone. The rules that apply are Rule 10, port starboard. Rule 18.2b, which restricts blue to give yellow mark room thereafter. Keyword thereafter. Position 2, no transitions are made. They're on both the same. At position 3, blue gains this overlap, but they're still on starboard. And then position 4. Since nothing changed to alter the original rules in play, blue owes yellow mark room, which includes room to leave a mark on the required side, and mark room has yet to be fully given, so Rule 18.2b still applies, which means they have to give mark room, and D, which is another one, doesn't apply, so B has to give, blue has to give yellow mark room and room for yellow to sail her proper course, and so they don't break a rule here, because they give her room to sail her proper course to it. At 3 and 4, Y is sailing her proper course, so she's sailing with the rooms which she's entitled to from B. And so yellow gets exonerated because for breaking port starboard. Oh, come back here, where are you? There it is. Gets breaking. When a boat rounds a mark wide, especially on an off-wind mark, her proper course may cease to be close to the mark before she has left the mark on the required side. In such a case, Rule 18.2b still applies, so let's look at 18.2b and we'll read it out so we know what happens. And see in 4, what we're saying here is that scenario 4, go back, blue altered up and went behind yellow. Okay, so what we're saying is that nobody broke a rule here, even though that was a port starboard. Yellow is sailing within the proper course that she's allowed to have under Rule 18.2b. Rule 18.2b says if boats are overlapped when the first of them reaches the zone, we talked about that one. So she has to thereafter, blue, because she started out clear stern, owes yellow mark room. So even though this is a port starboard, yellow gets to go around the mark and go and doesn't break Rule 10, even though blue has to alter. Make sense? It's a big team race thing. You got to remember that that's in play. If you're blue, you're behind, you're kind of in trouble here. So you need to attack, but at this point, you owe room, so you're just going to have to go.
No, wait, Jeff, if they came in overlapped,
If they came in overlapped,
then blue could hold.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. They came in overlapped because yellow then owes blue mark room
Right,
forever.
right.
But since they were not, there they are. And that was called H5. Think about match racing and team racing. So for us umpires to remember and for you to understand how the rules apply in certain scenarios, they've created this thing called the call book. So each call takes a scenario like this, breaks it down to what applies in each position, and tells you what the outcome should be. So if I see that happen on the water as an umpire, I know that there's no penalty they can do that. All right, so it lets us, as umpires, go quicker and think about it faster, and it lets you as sailors understand what's happening or what's about to happen. You don't have to think through the rules. It takes a scenario and says, if you're like this, you owe yellow room forever. Okay, does that make sense? So that was called H5.
Now, one more thing, if yellow came in pretty, like wider, right? So now their angle is, you know, more like what it is at position 3. then they are overlapped with blue coming in, and so it's that
Yes.
scenario we were
It's
talking
all about being overlapped or not. In this case, because they stayed wide but dead down, so that they
Right.
got to the zone first,
about. Right.
they're not. So, again, we have another call, team race call J9. So this one, where in position 1, X enters the zone at a lured mark to be left to port clear ahead of A and Y. So X is this outside boat, orange boat, outside. Teammate is the other orange inside, green is the opposite team. Rule 11 applies between, Rule 12 applies between X and A. So X is clear ahead, A is clear astern, so they have to keep clear. And Rule 11 applies between X and Y because they're overlapped at that point. And because, and then between X and A and X and Y. So it's all applies there. And 11 applies there. Rule 18.2b applies between X and A and X and Y. So X was clear ahead at the zone on both A and Y. A was at the zone with Y, so they owe room to Y, right? Position 2, A gains a windward overlap on X. Now Rule 11 applies between X and A, and between X and Y. It doesn't change 18.2b due to the restrictions applied by 18.2c, and 18.2c 1 says, when a boat is required to give mark room by 18.2b, she shall continue to do so even if later an overlap is broken or an overlap begins. So that's how we get the scenario where they go outside the zone. The overlap was broken, but they still get to come back in and go. They still owe the mark room. So the question that was asked in this, the way the call book works is they give you a scenario, then they have questions. So this one is question 1. It says, X enters the zone to the leeward mark to be left to port, clear ahead of A and X. X slows down to the leeward of the mark and attempt to trap A outside of her and let teammate Y pass A. So you can see how they're trying to do that. There's contact between all 3 boats and Y hits the mark. So the inside boat then protests there at position 3. And what's the answer? What's the call? Anybody want to guess on that one? A and Y.
Right.
Because they owe, Y can't go in there because there's no room between the other boat and they're not keeping clear and they're forcing A into there. So everybody, A and Y would get penalties. Although Y breaks Rule 11 on A, she's exonerated because she's selling within the mark room to which she's entitled. Y hits the mark, but she cannot be exonerated for breaking that rule, as she could have passed to the wrong side of it. Okay, so this had happened a little further back, then Y might have gotten away with it. They wouldn't get penalized because they were forced to break the rule. But you can't get exonerated for hitting the mark because you could have gone to the other side. Could have kept clear of it. So if Y sails to the wrong side of the mark to avoid a multiple collision, would the call be the same? The answer is no. Y doesn't break a rule. She does everything right. She keeps clear. She gives mark room to A, and she keeps clear. So she's all good, but so just A gets a penalty. But by forcing herself in, Y also puts herself at risk.
But if you see A going for it, then yeah, you need to take the escape hatch and just let A foul.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Rule J11. Call J11. 2 boats on port. Rule 11 applies between the 2 of them, and Rule 17 does not. An important piece of information we always want to know. Does Rule 17 apply? Because then proper course comes into play, right? In this case, it doesn't apply, so they don't have to sail the proper course. At position 2, Rule 11 still applies between blue and yellow. Yellow has reached the zone, and now Rule 18 applies, specifically Rule 18.2b. In position 3, Rule 11 applies between blue and yellow again, but in reverse. Now yellow has to keep clear of blue. As blue is now a lured boat. Rule 17 does not apply because they jived and kept the overlap. And yellow is still bound by Rule 18.2b. So she still owes blue room because of the word thereafter. So if they don't let blue in, yellow would be penalized. Right? Even though if they got themselves out clear ahead and cut close to the mark and blue couldn't go between them and the mark, if they could have gotten there, then yellow's going to get a penalty.
So they have to give them room, but now blue can no longer take them beyond the mark.
Exactly. Blue has an obligation. No, actually, blue can, because they said Rule 17 still doesn't apply. Because they jived into it, so blue could take them beyond the mark.
So,
Because the overlap.
Oh, they were overlapped, they were overlapped to begin with, so no. He has to go to the mark because they were overlapped when they got there, so proper course does apply.
so they were overlapped before they got in the zone, but they are not overlapped with the zone.
Yes, they are.
They are.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
2 and 2,
Oh, right, okay, alright.
they're overlapped.
Well,
And so yellow has to give blue marker, but because they're overlapped, blue has to sail their proper course, which is go to the mark, which is what they do here. They both do, off they go.
what's the thing where you jive and it changes everything? What is that?
I think
Jive, it happens when Rule 17 does apply, and you do a double jive so that then Rule 17 doesn't apply.
So basically, because yellow is jiving here, in order to give blue room, blue is obligated to actually make the rounding and not.
Well, they're actually obligated because back here they were overlapped at the zone.
Right.
Jeff, if yellow jives but becomes clear ahead through the jive, they owe 3. So keep
Absolutely, forever. They're out. All right, we'll do one more and then we'll call it a day. Call J8. So we have 2 boats, one clear ahead, one clear astern. Rule 12 applies between these 2 boats. Clear ahead, clear astern. Now they're overlapped as 2 gets to the zone, right? So red enters the zone and orange gains the overlap. Rules 11, 17, and 18 apply. So windward leeward applies to blue, to orange, which is the leeward of the 2 boats. And Rule 17 applies because they got that from astern, so they have to sail their proper course. And red owes orange mark room at this point. Here, orange jives, fulfilling her proper course for Rule 17, right? Because she has to jive immediately to go to the mark. This proper course applies. That's where she would normally jive to go there. But now, because she jived, port starboard applies, and 18.2b still applies. But Rule 17 turns off because they're no longer overlapped. She jives back,
Aha. There it
still
is.
overlapped. But now she's back on there, so a new overlap is established.
That's it.
And there's no longer a proper course restriction on orange. And they have no proper course of obligation, so they can just keep going.
Okay, that's the jive. Perfect.
All right, see how that, because they changed that, and they were still overlapped.
And I'm sorry, I'm feeling dumb. Can you spell out why that's different than the scenario before?
Yeah, because they stayed overlapped in the scenario before. Overlapped,
Mm-hmm.
jive together, simo jive, they're
Oh,
both
right.
now on the same, they jive together, so they both stay on the same tack all the time.
Right.
Port, now both starboard overlapped.
So in the next scenario, because they're jibe, it's a new overlap.
So then tactically, you wanna do the jibe so that you now erased your, proper course restriction.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right, okay.
there you have it.
But then if they do the jibe, then it gets weird. But, because then they, yeah.
Yeah. it does get weird.
How simultaneous do the jibes have to be?
Close enough such that nobody breaks the rule, because if the jibes are, you know, you're both on port, one jibes to starboard, the other guy's got to jibe immediately. I mean, but if the weather boat jibes to starboard, he then acquires right away. So that's rule 15, and so he has to give the inside, the port boat, room to keep clear, which is to jibe. So how to give him room to jibe, so that he jibes and they're still overlapped.
So if the red boat jibes at 3, he still loses room.
Well, if he jibes it, he has to jibe, he'd have to jibe with,
That's the defense, right?
Yeah, that's the defense.
to go with 3.
Yeah, you jibe with
But,
that, you're still
and that's
obligated
the
to
defense,
give
you
room.
still have to give him room, you have to go round with him,
Okay.
but you gotta do it there.
But he can't take you out.
Right,
But that, right, then he can't take you out, is that what you said?
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
All right, any other questions? I'm not gonna get any more scenarios either, because we about done time-wise. And my voice is about done.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for
Great.
doing this.
You're welcome.
Thank